Well, you don't need me to tell you that there are important days ahead for the Commanders. But it's not just the team that you should have your eyes on. There are a couple of players who might be on the trade block, and it might not be the guys that you're thinking. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Full Command Show. My name is Grant Mitchell, and we're here to discuss the potential trade acquisitions that the Commanders could be looking to make. Specifically, are they buying? Are they selling? Or are they just swapping my guy for your guy, my problem for your problem, your treasure for my treasure? Who is going to potentially be on the trade market? What direction are the Commanders looking to move in? What positions could be upgraded? Who is deemed surplus to requirements? Adam Peters has been aggressive. Traded for Laremy Tunsil, traded for Deebo Samuel. Last year, I believe, on deadline day, traded for Marshon Lattimore. We've got a little less than a month until the November 4th trade deadline. So I wanted to look at what players could potentially have their Commanders' futures coming to an end in the near future, and who could the Commanders looking to be recruit. Guys, we're going to jump into all of that and my thoughts on it, plus a whole little bit more. But before we get to that, back with a double upload. If you guys enjoy the content, make sure you do hit the like button. I won't tell you to subscribe again because you should already know to do that by now if you have not up to this point. So there are three player names who are ringing loud. The bells are going off in my head. And one of them in particular feels like a bit of a no-brainer. Okay, I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to say that I'm a genius for pulling this out of thin air. But what I am going to say is Mr. Brandon Coleman could be an attractive trade piece for the right team. Now, here's what I would say. Coleman did not have a good rookie year. Okay, let's be honest about it. He gave up 10 sacks playing that left tackle. He was the worst offensive lineman to start the year. Him and Allegretti were both terrible, but he did not look good through the first 2 weeks of action. And we know that because the coaching staff told you that. I always say this. The coaches will tell you what they think of players without having to tell you. Now, in the case of Brandon Coleman, that it came across a little more clearly because they didn't just bench him, they made him inactive. So they're saying, hey, dude, we don't even want to see you on the field. They talked about getting his practice habits right, making sure his body is right. He's been battling through some injuries. And the thing is, Chris Paul has stepped into this lineup and he has been outstanding. Now, there's obviously a benefit to having depth in multiple rooms, but specifically your offensive line. Also, the Commanders want to get younger, and Brandon Coleman's athletic potential makes him a valuable player for the future if he can get his technique and his fundamentals right. He is, I had it pulled up just a second ago. How tall is he? He is 6'4.5", 315 pounds coming out of college. At the combine, he dipped under 5 seconds in the 40-yard dash at a 4.99, had a 1.73 10-yard split in the 40. That's really good. A 34-inch vertical leap and a 9.6 broad jump at that size are both remarkable. He finished the combine with an athleticism score of 92. That was fourth among all guards that year. Obviously gets picked in the third round, and the rest is history from that point on. He played tackle, he played guard. He's got versatility. He can play on the left, he can play on the right. You can move him around in a perfect world. Now, I'm not saying that Brandon Coleman can't stay on this Commanders team and the coaching staff can't develop him into a quality player. What I am saying is the Commanders have 4 games left until the trade deadline. Obviously, you've got the Bears on Monday night, then you go at Cowboys, then you're at Chiefs on Monday Night Football again, and then you host the Seahawks for Sunday Night Football. The Commanders need to pay very close attention to these coming weeks. They need to look, obviously, at the results and also at the performances. If they're handling business, if they're not getting lucky, if Jaden Daniels is playing at an elite level, if the offensive line is great, if everything's going well, but you just need one defensive playmaker. That's the guy you're missing, okay? You win 3, even you win 4 of these games. Winning 3 games still might not be enough for some people. That would put you at what? That would put you at 6-3. Some people might need to be 7-2 to say that it's worth it because you don't want to sacrifice the short term for the long-term future. And I totally get that. I'm all about long-term sustainability here. And Brandon Coleman represents potential long-term sustainability if he can develop into that player. And you can look at Chris Paul and say that's a perfect example. It's a guy who needed until his 4th year to get on the field. I get it. I'm not writing Brandon Coleman off. What I am saying is he is an attractive trade target for some other teams out there. So let me put some names out there that I think the Commanders, again, if they win 3, if they win 4 of their next 4 games, I think you got to at least kick the tires on these guys. Now, we saw Greg Newsome just got traded for Tyson Campbell in a swap between the Browns and the Jaguars. Couple of guys that I have my eyes on. Now, the defensive line has played well up to this point. I don't think it's worth dipping in on a marquee edge rusher right now, considering the defensive line and your ability to generate pressure is not the biggest issue with your defense. Bobby Wagner, I get it. He's slow. It's frustrating with him going backwards, but he's as good as he's ever been moving forwards. Frankie Louvu, teams are treating him as the star of the defense, and that's what he was last year. But in them doing that, they're opening up pass rushing lanes for Dorrance Armstrong. We saw Jordan McGee get on the field, and he got a free rush. So we're going to leave Frankie Louvu as he is for now. We're good with Trey Amos. Quan Martin, we'll see how it goes. It's been up and down. Hopefully Will Harris comes back. Mikey, bit up and down as well. There's still a clear need for a cornerback there. So I'm wondering, can you package Brandon Coleman and a pick, maybe a third, maybe a fourth round pick, or could you package Brandon Coleman and Marshon Lattimore and get any of these guys? And I'll start with the one that I like the least, not that I dislike the player, but the trade package. Byron Murphy from the Vikings. Now, the Vikings just re-signed him, if I'm not mistaken, and I believe he's 27, 28 years old. He's the oldest guy that I have written down here. The other options that I think would definitely be the biggest benefit to the Commanders, depending on what happens in the next couple of games for the Houston Texans, is Kamari Lassiter available. Now, Derek Stingley is incredible, and he's one of the best corners in the NFL, and they're going to keep him locked down because their pass defense has been outstanding for the last couple of years, and Lassiter is definitely a big part of that. But the Texans' offensive line has also been abysmal for the last few years. This year, they're 27th in run block win rate, 29th in pass block win rate. They traded Laramie Tunsil. They traded Kenyon Green. Not that he's any good, but still, there is an obvious need to get younger and just to get bigger and stronger and faster on that offensive line. Brandon Coleman is not the finished product right now, but if the Texans, they're, what are they, 1-4, 2-4, 2-3, 2-4, whatever they are right now, if we go another 3-4 weeks and they continue to lose games, they're obviously not going to be in the hunt for the AFC South title. They're not going to be in the hunt for the playoffs. Do they recognize that and say, hey, let's get younger. Let's try to add to a strength or try to add to a weakness, and we can reduce one of our strengths because we are so good in the second. And don't forget, they still have Jalen Petrie and some other guys back there. So could you get Kamari Lassiter off of them? And that might take Lattimore and Coleman and a pick. But here's the good thing about Lattimore. First things first, he's frustrated a lot of Commanders fans. Second of all, a team like the Texans, who are a defensive team and who potentially could still challenge for a division title, but probably don't have expectations of going on a deep playoff run. A player like Marshon Lattimore could be good for them because he could be a plug-and-play sort of replacement. He could play out the rest of the year. If you want to re-sign him, he is a free agent at the end of the season, but then also you don't have to re-sign him. I'm sorry. He's still under contract next season. However, you have a potential out for no penalty, $0 against the cap if you get to the end of the season and it doesn't work. So you replace the player that you just lost in Lassiter, and you have an option. You have a bit of long-term flexibility, at least to the next year, or you can get off of it for no penalty. So that saves you your money. Plus, you got Brandon Coleman, and maybe you got a pick in there. Now, in the case of a package being Coleman and Lattimore, that pick's not going to be a third or fourth round. That's going to be more 5, 6, 7, but still that offers them an intriguing option. And then the other team is the Seattle Seahawks, because they have kind of openly put Riq Woolen on the market. Riq Woolen, I want to say, he's 26 years old. He was an athletic freak. Actually, let me find out exactly how old he is. Just one moment here. So Riq Woolen, he's 26 years old. Yep, he was a 5th-round pick in 2022 out of UTSA. He ended up making the Pro Bowl as a rookie. He had 6 interceptions that season. A passer rating, I think, was something in the 40s, passer rating allowed. He's 6'4", 210 pounds, had 3 really good years in the NFL to start his career. He hasn't blended well into Mike Macdonald's system, and also the emergence of Josh Jobe and some of the other guys in the secondary. That has made the Seahawks comfortable with their depth, potentially moving off of one of these players. And Riq Woolen, being that he's about to run out of his rookie contract, he would obviously be looking for an extension. Well, here's the thing. You're paying Marshon Lattimore, I believe, about $18 million already to play for you this season. If you swap that contract, you bring in Riq Woolen, figure he's going to make about the same on his next deal, maybe even potentially less. I really don't know the numbers on that, but it's going to be in the same ballpark, and you're just handing them over Lattimore and then handing over Brandon Coleman, who's not in your immediate future right now, and you've still got some guard depth. You could potentially re-sign Andrew Wiley. You could potentially re-sign Nick Allegretti, and maybe you dip in the draft. You pick up somebody in the 5th, 6th, 7th round. That keeps the Commanders in a stable position with long-term flexibility. The player you're trading for, Riq Woolen, would be 26 years old. I think Lassiter is 24, 25. And then all you've done is give up a player that is inactive and a player who has been potentially your biggest underperformer in the secondary, and a guy that you already had to give up 3 draft picks to acquire. So now you're at least getting some compensation back for that. You're not just getting to the end of the season and then cutting him, and it's a sunk cost on those draft picks. That's the way that I look at this. I think, again, Commanders got to be smart. You don't want to go 1-3 and then go into buy now mode, considering the window you still have with Jaden Daniels. But that's something that I think we all know the secondary is the biggest issue on this team right now. And if they're going to continue to win games, they're not going to have a championship level roster because of what's in the secondary right now. But there could be a unique opportunity to upgrade that. Also, one final thing before I get out of here, or before I switch topics, rather. The Seahawks are only 22nd in pass rush win rate. They obviously want to get better at the guard spot. That's why they drafted Gray Zabel in the first round. They do still have issues there on the interior, and Coleman gives them flexibility, having experience playing guard and tackle. So just something to keep an eye on. I'm really interested to hear your guys' thoughts on that, so please go to the comment section below and let me know what you think. Now, I said that there were 3 players I thought could potentially be on the trade block. Mentioned 2 of them, Marshon Lattimore, Brandon Coleman. Here's the last one, Terry McLaurin. Now, I don't believe the Commanders will trade McLaurin in the middle of the season. I think they're going to have to get to the end of the year. However, I want to just give an overall Terry McLaurin update. So he still has not practiced in any capacity since he injured his hip flexor, which is what it's been confirmed as. It's not a quad injury, despite what they're listing on the injury report. It is a hip flexor injury. That's according to Ian Rappaport. I always want to say Ian Rappaport. I've said that before. He missed a real marketing opportunity. Good brand there. Ian Rappaport. Ian Rappaport has confirmed it's a hip flexor injury, not a quad injury. So with him missing all of those practices, by the way, he was listed on today's injury report as a non-participant. That was an estimation. The Commanders did not practice today, but the last practice they had, he didn't participate, and it seems like he's not made any progress. By all accounts, he's not going to be ready to go on Monday night, and that has me being concerned because that means he will miss at least 3 games, and at that point, he has to play against Dallas. If he doesn't, it was a mistake by Adam Peters and Dan Quinn because he will have missed 4 games, and you could have put him on IR, which means he would miss a minimum of 4 games, but now you get to elevate somebody to your 53-man roster in his absence. So either, I don't know if the medical staff misdiagnosed this. I don't know if there was a setback. I don't know if DQ and AP were hoping for the best, or I don't know if Terry's going to play against the Cowboys. But for this to not be a big mistake, he does have to suit up in week 7. Otherwise, it was a wasted opportunity. And with some of the other weaknesses on this team, / the guys that we do want to see on the field, / the injuries that have occurred, you could have put that spot to good use. That's all I'm going to say. So then I want to talk about Terry McLaurin's production through the first 3 games, because a lot of people have said that this is the worst start to his career. And I honestly believed it was, and maybe that's my fault for not going back. Actually, it is my fault for not going back and doing my due diligence. So let's look at Terry's first 3 games in a season over his career. So his rookie season, 2019, he comes out with 16 receptions for 257 yards, 3 touchdowns. Next year, very similar. 16 receptions for 269 yards and a touchdown. In 21, it's 19 receptions for 231 and a touchdown. In 22, it's 12 receptions for 235 yards and a touchdown. Then, for whatever reason, there's just a sharp downturn. In 23, which is the Sam Howell year, it's 13 receptions for 126 yards and a touchdown. Last year, Jaden's first year, it's 12 receptions for 139 yards and a touchdown. You'll remember he had those 2 really slow games, and then he gets 4 catches for 100 yards against the Bengals. And then this season, it's 10 receptions for 149 yards. So this is the fewest receptions in the first 3 games of his NFL career. It's the only time he hasn't scored, but it's his 3rd fewest receiving yards. It's more receiving yards through 3 games than it was each of the last 2 seasons. So I don't really know how you quantify that. I would still say his impact has probably been the least that it has been as far in his NFL career, as far as I can remember. Last year, you can make the excuse Jaden Daniels was a rookie, just starting his career. The year before that, you can make the excuse it was Sam Howell's first year starting, and it's Sam Howell. After Terry inks that big deal, considering how hot he was to finish the year last year, the partnership that him and Jaden had formed, you would expect him to have started the year better, but obviously he hasn't. Now, with that in mind, with the conversation about him already missing 3 weeks, soon to be 3 weeks, unless something drastic changes going into Monday night, potentially missing 4 weeks and should have been on IR, I'm getting impatient. And I want to be sympathetic to players because they don't go out there with the intention of getting injured. And Terry didn't ask to be injured. But for all the people who are going to say, hey, it's football, injuries just happen sometimes, that's absolutely true. But the biggest negotiating point that Terry and his representation had was, I'm consistent and I don't get injured. Well, this is already, if he doesn't play on Monday night, this is the worst injury of Terry's career. I get it. That's not saying much because he's only missed 3 games, but still, when your main selling point is consistency and health, this is about to be the worst injury of your career. You can argue this is the worst start to your career, and this is after you've got all that money in the bank. And I get it. The whole premise of holding out is that you're not practicing with the team. That doesn't give you an excuse to not come to camp in shape. And whether it was Terry not being on the field as much as he normally is, whether it was this injury, I feel I'm justified in pointing to his preparation and saying something could have been done differently to get you in a spot where you were producing better and then the injury happens, or it's this production, but hey, at least you're healthy, at least you're good to go, and you've got you've got the wind in your sails moving forward. Last year it took 2 games for Terry to get going. Maybe this year it took 3. And maybe week 4 was the magic mark. Maybe the Falcons game, he would have gone for 120 yards and a touchdown. He would have changed that game. But we'll never know because he got injured against the Raiders. It's so funny how quickly injured against the Raiders. Sorry. It's so funny to me how the entire perception of Terry McLaurin has just shifted. There was basically no Commanders fan who wouldn't give up the shirt on their back for Terry McLaurin 6 months ago. He was the face of the franchise. He was a model citizen. He was a great player. He always said the right things. He was competitive. He weathered the storm. It seemed like he finally got the success that he was earned, if you believe in storybook, fairy tale sorts of endings. A Super Bowl looked to be on the horizon with Jaden Daniels, but just the fact that he went through all those trials and tribulations and then finally goes 12-5, gets to the conference championship game. It's like, that's what sports are about, man. You stayed on the course, you weathered the storm, and you get to where you deserve to be. That's what hard work and effort and determination is all about. Everything about this situation just feels so wrong. There's not a real emotional connection to Terry. I get the fans are chanting Terry, Terry, Terry in the stadium, but it doesn't feel genuine to me. I could be wrong. Let me know if you disagree with me. I've been at the games this season. It doesn't feel genuine. The way that he went through this negotiation process, it could have been worse. He wasn't saying bad things about the team, but he just acted so strangely. He was parading his agent, Buddy Baker, around the practice field. Then he has the weird Eastern's press conference where he says, I'm not talking to the team. And then while he's at practice, he dresses in the same outfit every single day. And then he waits for the media to come interview him, only to run off the field saying, I'm not answering any questions. What else? The trade request / trade demand. And then after he signs the deal and he holds that press conference for the first time, he says, no, that was a real trade demand. I wanted to move on. Everything about this is just so weird. Saying you're in excellent shape coming back, not playing your full snaps, not producing, now you're getting injured. I don't know what to feel about it. So now let me loop this back to where I started this video at. I said if the Commanders are serious contenders, they'll win 3-4 of their next 4 games. If they win 1, if they win 2, is it time to consider trading Terry McLaurin? I feel like it has to be at that point because Terry's value is only going to go down from this point on. He's now 30 years old. I was trying to think of the last top 10, top 15, top 20 receiver who was 30 years plus and got traded. And then it hit me, oh, wait, that just happened. So Davante Adams at 31 was traded from the Raiders to the Jets. Now, the Jets gave up a conditional 3rd-round pick, which had the opportunity to rise to a 2nd-round pick. I forget what the condition was. I think they might have had to make the playoffs. Obviously, they didn't, so it ended up being a 3rd-round pick. But there were several factors in that. Davante Adams at his peak was a significantly better player than Terry McLaurin was. Last season, or the season before he was traded, he had 1,100 yards and 8 touchdowns. That's better than what Terry's on course to have this season. And also, there was the friendship connection with Davante Adams and Aaron Rodgers, who I'm just going to assume Aaron Rodgers put pressure on the Jets front office to make that trade. So what's the trade market for Terry looking like right now? Over the summer, it was higher, but after this start to the year, I feel like we're getting, like, at best, we're looking for a third-round draft pick. Again, let me know if I'm wrong. Over the summer, I would have said maybe you can squeeze a first out of somebody, but seeing how it's spiraled right now, also with the new contract, which isn't punitive until 2027, but at that point where you switch over from an $18.5 million cap hit to 35 and then 37 the year after, that's pretty punitive on a team for a 32, 33-year-old receiver. I think a third or a fourth round draft pick is really where you're at with Terry McLaurin right now. So if you do go 1-3, if you do go 2-2 over these next couple of games, and you can get a lesser receiver and a pick back for Terry, or maybe Luke continues to develop, maybe Noah's fine, maybe Jalen Lane develops, maybe Debo keeps producing at a wide receiver one level. I don't know what the situation is, but that is the other potential reality that awaits the Commanders as the trade deadline approaches. Guys, I'm going to go ahead and get on out of here, but before you click off this video, please do hit the like button if you enjoyed it. Hit the subscribe button if you're new around here. And most importantly, go to the comment section and let me know what your thoughts are here. Do you think any of the three players I mentioned, Brandon Coleman, Marshon Lattimore, Terry McLaurin, do you think they could be traded? And if so, what would you be looking for? What is your favorite package? And what players do you want to see coming back? That is going to do it for me here, guys. As I always say, I'll catch you in the next one. Have a great day.